Hello again. It's time to get back to some footage here, and our friend Joe came over to help with the tire. He was definitely a lifesaver in doing so. Saved us quite a bit since the two tire companies we have accessible from in town are both going to charge an hourly rate. So from the time they leave the office in the store in Chehalis to the time they come out, all their work, plus the time to drive back, on top of whatever repairs they end up charging, are it gets pretty expensive. The last time I had this tire go flat, um, which I don't know if that's coincidence or not, but it was the same tire. Anyway, the last time it was it was like $500 for the service. They came out, they took the tire off, fixed a flat, reinflated the tire, and refilled it with ballast. And thanks to Joe's help and his skills and tools, we ended up being able to take the tire into Les Schwab, and all they did is inflate it, which it's kind of annoying. They wouldn't have had to do that, but you'll see later on we tried using my little compressor, and it just couldn't put a high enough volume of air, like all at once, to seat the bead. We tried Joe's air compressor, and it had the same problem. So that's what we're trying to do right here, is trying to like squeeze the tire, trying to shimmy it and work it. I mean, the repair itself took Joe, like, I kid you not, like a minute. Once he got access on the inside, he just pulled the remains of the old valve stem off, put a new valve stem on, and and that's it. So I decided, while we were trying to think of something else and working on, while I was not doing anything, I'd go ahead and just clean some of the mud off the tractor there. And so we're trying every trick in the book that he can think of. Nothing ended up working. So he ended up going. He actually made a couple of trips. So this is Murphy soap, and I don't know what it actually is. I've never used it for anything before, but he had a big bucket of it. And apparently one of the tricks is that you can use it to basically temporarily fill the gap between the rim and the tire, and create enough pressure just to get that tire to pop. But again, the challenge was that there just wasn't enough air volume. So we tried putting a strap around it to try and pop it, and that actually helped a little bit. We started to get smaller leaks, but more of them. And oddly, the strap's rated for 1,000 pounds, and somehow, in the process of doing this, it ended up bending the ratchet, which was kind of crazy because it was a brand new ratchet. So I don't know. I guess we'll find out what kind of warranty Stanley has, because it's a Stanley branded ratchet that was a gift, and aside from that, it's been a good ratchet. It's kind of crazy, but anyway, so what I'm just doing is just sitting there and trying to pack that in. So he's on his way to go get his air compressor and see if that'll have more. I wish we had a way to like connect the two so they could both be dumping into the tire at the same time. That might have solved it. But anyway, like I said, we ended up loading it up and took it to Les Schwab. And aside from being super surprised that we had access to actual Murphy soap, which apparently is something that not many people have available to them, it was pretty quick and easy that they just put some air in it and it popped the bead off, and then they were actually kind enough to wipe up all of the extra Murphy soap too, and they ended up not charging me for it. They would have charged for ballast if we had put some in it, but I decided not to for the moment. I don't really drive on a slanted hill that much. I mean, I do drive on our hill, but I'm usually on a level spot that I have dug out with the backhoe, or I'm going up the hill and then I go back down. I try not to turn on the hill because that's just a very creepy, dangerous thing. Anyway, he had some questions about where I actually got stuck, and so we were talking about that for a minute. But yeah, so it ended up not costing us anything to do this repair, which is pretty awesome. I'm going to figure out how there's actually a little adapter that you can get to be able to fill the ballast yourself, and so I'm gonna go get that and use a garden hose to be able to fill it. I'm not quite sure what I will fill it with, but they charge $8 a gallon for the beet juice ballast, which is great stuff in a lot of ways, because it's the liquid left over from harvesting the sugar out of the beet, so it's de-sugared beet juice, and they claim it doesn't freeze until like -40, and it is non-toxic. So if it does leak out, it doesn't. There's no risks to the wildlife, and it also apparently doesn't corrode the rim. So it's got a lot of good benefits, but it's pricey. I mean, if I want to have them top the tire off, that's about $250 to put some back in. So I'm hoping I can figure something else out. But who knows? We'll see. I might end up taking the tire in at some point if I decide I need more ballast and don't want to put anything else in. But anyway, it was an interesting adventure that we had. We don't actually get to hang out with Joe very often, so obviously we ended up, as you can tell, just shooting the breeze for a little bit. Shooting the breeze, enjoying the breeze. Yeah, this was definitely an interesting adventure. I actually went up yesterday and brush hogged the driveway that I cut out, and that was kind of surprising to see how many. I mean, most of it was grass, but how many weeds had spread in through there, and it's been interesting to see, like, when we get dirt from certain places, we get certain types of weeds. If we get dirt from other places, then we get different weeds. And up on the hill, I didn't bring any dirt in, so it was interesting to see that, like, the weeds that are there are, I guess, just the weeds that are just here anyway, and the seeds just don't usually get the opportunity to compete. So that was kind of interesting. I actually at one point was super annoyed and frustrated because I thought we have a problem with tansy ragwort. There was a whole bunch of plants that I thought, as I was driving up and down, looked like they were the tansy. But Emily went up there and was looking at them this morning, and she said they're a different kind of plant that's similar to tansy ragwort, but not the same. So they're still a weed, and we'll go through Thursday. We're going to go through and spend some time digging those out. Hang on a second. I gotta shoo the chickens out of my strawberry garden. Well, alrighty. That's always a annoyance. We like having free-range chickens, but they tend to get into things that they shouldn't. So we're working on a fence, but too many other things have taken priority. So the fence hasn't been done, and it's, I don't know, it's been 1.5 years, I think, since we started it. Anyway, so it's now a new day, and I ended up picking up some hardware. I'm at my 400-hour mark, so I need to do the 400-hour service and change the filters and things. And I figured while I was there and while I was here, I'd go ahead and take care of some of the little pieces of hardware that I have damaged over the years. And then I had the thought that I could hopefully use the dump trailer to just slide the tire out. My goal was actually hoping that I could keep it from falling back down, but the tire had other ideas. It didn't want to stand up. So this turned out to be a little bit of a touchy moment. And we get the tire on, and then end up having it wasn't an argument. It was a frustrated discussion about communication. Sometimes I don't relay how my brain works, how my thought process works. And while that's one of the things that Emily loves about me is how my brain works, when she's helping me, she apparently gets rather frustrated that I don't communicate well about the process inside my head. And so apparently she got offended that that board I had put under there because I thought I needed to raise the tire up, and I didn't want to have to lift the tractor on this bottle jack any more than I absolutely had to. And I thought that the tire actually needed to go, I don't know. Anyway, she suggested just moving the board, and in my head at the time, it didn't seem like that was going to work, and I didn't explain to her why I didn't think that was going to work. And so when I a few minutes later moved the board, and then the thought was that I needed to raise the tire straight up, and like it didn't register at first that I could roll the tire and then kind of wiggle it and make that work better. So that's why we're a little frustrated at the moment. And it's good to have conversations, and sometimes they don't get said enough. But a marriage is a compromise. It's a collaboration, and it's something you have to do to work together. So, that's what we did is work together. What kind of sparked the frustration for me is that the cribbing was still in place, and the tire's not actually on. I mean, the threads are there, so theoretically it shouldn't fall. But I get pretty paranoid when I'm working under heavy things. I don't actually like being under a vehicle um, at all, ever. That's the worst thing possible for me. So when I'm, even if I'm only partially under, I'm just super paranoid about it. And I'd asked Emily to check if she could move the one of the cribbing pieces, and she thought that meant to go ahead and take them all out, which those are the safety in case in case the jack fails or breaks, because there's a lot of weight in this little tractor. Um, and so we were discussing largely how my brain works and how I don't communicate as well as she would like. So um, she asked if I was going to leave this in the footage, I said, well, sure. I mean, this is just footage about us and what we're doing, and um, the important thing is that we did talk about it and worked our way through it, and um, now communicate slightly better because of it. So that's the takeaway. Um, and I have to. Emily was pretty concerned at this point because I was limping, and I'm leaning on the tractor and the brush hog because I had been on my knees too long, getting too old and too fat apparently. So being on my knees that long, my legs were almost completely numb. It was pretty painful. So she was very concerned that I was suddenly limping, that I had injured myself, since that's what we were just discussing, is the whole point of the cribbing and taking it out when it's at the right time and whatnot, and to prevent injury. And so she thought that I had actually got injured for a minute there, so I had to alleviate that too. Make sure she knew that concern was not a necessary or valid point. And it was, yeah. So anyway, now we're at this point. I think we're discussing how to get the tractor out of here, because Emily doesn't like driving the truck when there's a trailer, but she doesn't really like driving the tractor either. So it was either like, we go back and maybe she brings me back on an ATV, or I could just walk back, because I mean, it's not that far. It's like we measured it once, and it's a little less than a quarter of a mile from the entrance to where the camper is. But we decided either way we got to hook up the brush hog, and because it's got to get off the ground. And it's not in an ideal spot, so this was actually one of the more challenging times trying to get things to work. And there's something to be said about some of the luxuries of newer, bigger, more expensive tractors. John Deere, for instance, was super, super proud of the fact that they have buttons on the back of the tractor that can control both the tractor's transmission and the 3-point. So you get back there, you start lining things up, and if things don't quite line up, you can, push a button and roll the tractor forward a couple inches, or roll it backward a couple inches, or just lift the 3-point, lower it, whatever you need right there. There's been a lot of times, like this one in particular, this hookup was more annoying, and so that would have been definitely a useful time to have that feature. But it was like that version of the tractor versus the one that was almost identical, except that it didn't have that, was like $4,000 less for the not having that feature. So I didn't really pay too much attention to that on any of the tractors that I was actually looking at. If I ever have, money to throw away, then that would be kind of nice. But anyway, Emily said that we had to make sure we kissed there to show on camera that we did work things out. So we did, but that's where the footage ends for today. So as always, thank you for watching. God bless you and yours. Stay safe out there and make sure you communicate with those around you.